big mistake that I see a lot of other creators making is assuming that their friends know what they're doing.
Because we're building a relationship, it'd be like, okay, well, tell me more about this launch you have. What's the goal behind it? And this immediately helps a sponsor go, whoa, this is a little bit different. We were asking you questions and now you're asking us questions. Are you that interested? That's really cool.
What objections are you currently facing? What is the price point? Who is your ideal customer persona? Here is ours. How well do those line up?
Hey, I'm Pat, founder of SPI, and I'm here with my buddy Matt.
Hey, I'm Matt. I am Pat's business partner at SPI. And these days, we help entrepreneurs become the best versions of themselves with an entirely community-first and community-powered approach.
Glad to have you guys here. You guys are OGs in the space and excited today to dig into y'all's sponsorship strategy. So walk me back to the very beginning. When was the first time that a brand or a company ever offered to pay you money to talk about them on your platform?
Yeah, I mean, I'll probably have to start with this one because Matt came on a little bit later in the journey, when we partnered up. It was just me in the beginning. I started my blog in 2008. And the first time a company wanted to sponsor was actually on my architecture website. This was the website that I built first before teaching any of this stuff. And I was teaching people how to pass an architectural exam. And this was back in 2008. So we're going like way back. And sponsorship, the way it worked back then was, hey, I have a blog and it gets traffic. This company reached out and they were like, hey, can we put a 150 by 150 square pixel on the sidebar of your website for however much you charge? And I had that company reach out to me. They found me because I was ranking really high on Google. And I was like, oh man, this is like real business reaching out to me. I didn't know what to do. So I kind of fumbled, but I didn't want to lose the opportunity. So I was like, $25. And like, $25? Like, okay. And I was like, yes. And they're probably like, yes, we got him. So it was like that for 3 or 4 months until I, started talking to people who knew what they were doing. And they were like, you need to be charging like 10x that for, again, what was common back then was the 150 by 150 pixel thing on the sidebar. And then I added a few more of those. And then I discovered affiliate marketing, which was a little bit more lucrative for that company specifically. But that's where it all began.
Interesting. I think we all have a lot of those stories. I mean, we definitely did, of like just like cheering initially and then doing a facepalm a little bit later, like, oh man. And it's interesting. You mentioned, you talked with other people who knew what they were doing. You should be charging 10x. And it's funny because along the way, I mean, that was definitely what we did as well. And it's actually a big mistake that I see a lot of other creators making is assuming that their friends know what they're doing. Like there are some friends who do, but a lot of people don't. A lot of people are also just kind of making it up as you go along. And so I've found that like I'm always a little bit skeptical of when people being like, no, definitely this is what you should do. And I'm just like, oh no, did you hear that from another friend too? So it's funny. We've all evolved from that. And so obviously you guys have built a massive business over the last number of years. And obviously a big part of your overall revenue as a company is directly monetized. You have customers, you have clients, people who are in your communities, people who purchase your courses and things like that. So how do you think about sponsorships now that you have this big, robust presence, you have a baseline of revenue for the business? How do you handle brands that are coming inbound? Are you pitching brands? Are you reaching out and pitching collaborations? Like, how do you think about it now?
Yeah, I mean, maybe I can pass over to Matt because after the sort of early days of sponsorships, then it became sponsorships on the podcast. And that was mainly directly working with companies who I liked and talking to them. And then it started to become more of, okay, well, I'm too busy to try to find these guys and manage all this. So let's find an agency to do this. And maybe Matt, this is where I can pass it to you and some of the work we've done with some agencies that we've been working with to do these kind of sponsorships, and you can take it to where we're going now, which is in a completely different but more awesome direction.
Yeah, I think the transformation, right, is a really cool story to really kind of dig into and even pick apart here a little bit. So yeah, as Pat was kind of teeing up there, like I'd say like the current state, if I even kind of dial that back to like middle of last year, is the conventional model of having really good relationships, either direct or vis-a-vis third party, right? But we're selling single channel and we're talking about individual placements, either in a podcast or in our newsletter or on other kind of predefined touch points, right? And there's nothing fundamentally wrong with that, but I'm increasingly of the mind where it will be wrong soon, right? Because I think with the brands that we have, in the way that at least Pat and I have approached this always, and Justin, your work as well, the conventional approach is, I think, unfortunately, increasingly transactional, we're thinking in smaller and smaller units in the world of, say, podcast ads, right? Like it's always about CPMs. And at least in that side of the sponsorship market over the last 18 months, if not 24, like it's been a really freaking hard market, right? Like rates are being pushed down. Even big firms and brands that used to have deep pockets for sponsorships have been pulling back. And we suffered last year, like really big brands. I'm not going to name names, but they cut like mid-flight, on some really long-term programs, right? That hurts us, that hurts them. Like it just hasn't been great, to be very candid. And so much of, again, I think the underpinnings of some of these things that produce those sorts of unfortunate situations are transactionally based relationships. And it's really never who we've been, though, right? Like when we think about all the way back to the OG days that Pat was describing, we teach from experience, we open ourselves up. Pat kind of coined the idea of us being the crash test dummies of internet business for so long, right? And we've been through and through from the audience building side now very much into our community members, leading with empathy and leading with the full sort of spectrum of what we can do together. And we're trying to now really infuse that into sponsorship relationships. So we're trying to move away from single channel, move away from, esoteric short-term focus sort of campaigns, in part because we know, one, that's not a long-term relationship, probably, at least the theory of that. And two is from a result set in terms of like all the competition in the market, the fragmentation of media and channel, everything else. We need longer time horizons for more exposure across more different media touch points and channels to genuinely produce a positive upswell impact. It is not a linear equation. It is an exponential equation that arcs up. So that is our new kind of business thrust and relationship thrust, is into more multi-channel, more experiential exposure points that across a 3-4 month horizon versus just a 3 to 4 week horizon, we're all going to win exponentially more.
Yeah, no, I want to validate that wholeheartedly, because if you think about it from the brand's perspective, in fact, when I had Jay Klaus on here, he had a very similar challenge. He was doing very kind of single platform type things. He had agency partners who was helping him kind of fill his inventory, so to speak. But a lot of the times, because he had multiple different entities handling different parts of the business, like someone sold the podcast ads and someone sold the newsletter ads, and it was this different thing. He was having to make like multiple introductions. Like, okay, like a brand would come inbound and be like, I want to partner with you, Jay. And he'd be like, okay, great. I'm going to send 2 introduction emails. And it was just like a terrible experience for the sponsor. But to your point, a lot of times they don't care about the tactic. They care about working with SPI, or they care about working with Pat. And so their goal is like, okay, you just tell me, right? I liken it a lot of time to a doctor, right? Let's say a creator or a business, they have a rate sheet, or they have a place on the website where like, oh, book, this date of the podcast ad via Stripe, and just, fill out your information. It's very, it's easy to do that, obviously. But the big thing that you miss is that it's like going to the doctor and you have this ailment and you walk into the doctor's office and you're about to open your mouth to tell him what's wrong with you. And he just says, shh. And he writes a prescription, he hands it to you and walks out. Because that's what you're doing as a creator, as a business, if you have these kind of prefix menu packages of all the different ways, gold, silver, bronze, whatever, all the different ways that, this brand can work with you, pick one. They're saying, well, none of those things are actually going to help us accomplish what we want to, why we reach out to them to begin with. And you miss a big opportunity to maybe land a 100K, 200, 500K deal to be your title sponsor, ambassador for 12 months, this type of thing. So 100% want to validate you. And so I would love to dig into the tactics, like get a little bit more tactical about what does that actually look like. Let's say that I'm a brand that comes inbound to SPI. Hey, I want to work with you. Love your guys' mission and values. Think it's aligned with what we're doing. So let's say we're on a phone call, Matt, and I presume you'd be on the phone call doing this discovery stuff. Give me the pitch. Like what would you, how are you going to interact with the brand and with this new approach?
Well, I would say that the pitch in terms of the broad level is actually the story, right? So not even the tactics, quite frankly. I don't want to lead with tactics. Like I want to say like, look, you're going to be a strategic partner. And what that means to us is not just access to our audience, but probably access to our community, access to my team, access to me, access to Pat. So if you want a relationship with us, here's where we're going. Here's our value set as a company and as a brand. And here's how we deliver on those promises by way of content through ways of community programming. Here is our history over the last 15 years on the internet. And there are very few brands out there that have that level of credibility and experience, that have seen the highs and the lows, that have survived the transformations, and know, quite frankly, better than anyone where entrepreneurship is going, because we've seen where it's been. If you want to be a part of that story and that journey, then you want to partner with us.
Okay, let's say that I'm a brand and I have a software program that helps you track all of your affiliate accounts. It's like a dashboard that allows, you can plug in all these different affiliate accounts from all these different places. It's almost like a business intelligence type tool for creators, business owners that are, large media brands, whatever. Gives you insights, analytics, etc. I reach out to SPI. I'm saying, I think you guys, this is perfect, right? You guys have a bunch of affiliate marketers in your or people who value affiliate marketing, and we have this big new feature that's launching in Q2. Give me the pitch. Like how could you help me move the needle on that objective? Hey, real quickly, before we hear that answer, want to know the secret to unlocking reliable recurring income and building a devoted community without all the headaches? Well, this video is brought to you by Uscreen, the all-in-one membership platform designed to make your life easier and your pockets fuller. See, I believe memberships are the future for many creators, but here's the game changer. Uscreen creators are profiting faster than they ever thought possible. In fact, over 70% of Uscreen creators become profitable within just 3 months. That's right, 3 months. Uscreen has helped creators earn more than $150 million a year and reaches over 10 million users. And you don't need millions of followers or hundreds of videos to start. Uscreen is for creators of all sizes looking to build a reliable, recurring income with their content and community. And talk about seamless, Uscreen takes care of everything from live streaming to chat rooms to in-depth analytics. They've got you covered. But here's the best part. Uscreen helps you create your own branded apps. Imagine having a Netflix-style membership experience, but just for your content. That's what Yoga with Adrienne did with her app, Find What Feels Good. It's an amazing ad-free experience for her community, all built by Uscreen. Now, if you're worried about the tech stuff, don't be. Uscreen offers free content migration, best-in-class customer support, and a dedicated success manager to guide you every step of the way. Okay, the most important reason that you should check out Uscreen is that they're just awesome people. I've had multiple chances to hang out with folks on their team like Rob and Srey at a couple recent conferences, and they just couldn't be nicer and more dedicated to serving the creator community. So why settle for less when you can have more profits, more community, and more freedom? So to start your membership journey with Uscreen, click the link below.
We would come up with that plan together, right? It would be because we're building a relationship, it'd be like, okay, well, tell me more about this launch you have. What's the goal behind it, right? And this immediately helps a sponsor go, whoa, this is a little bit different, right? We were asking you questions and now you're asking us questions. Are you that interested? That's really cool. But then we might come up with a plan. Okay, well, before we talk about this feature that's coming out in a few months, might it make sense for you to come on the show so we could talk about where this all even came from and get people excited about it instead of just throwing it in front of their face once it's live? Let's build up to it. But before that, I feel like I need to use this first, and maybe we can integrate it into some of our work so that when we talk about it, it's not just, hey guys, this company's paying us to talk about this. It's like, oh no, kind of MKB HD style. So I've been using this for 4 weeks now and I'm about to tell you about it, right? So these are the kinds of things that can happen. And no, not like in many cases, we can't use or replace something we have with a new thing, but we can learn about it and we can see how maybe our members are using it. We can go into our community and say, hey, might you be able to do a 1-hour workshop for our SPI Pro members? And in exchange for that amazing information that I'm sure we're going to get, you're going to get some eyeballs and you're going to get some feedback. And, we would hope that they would understand how valuable that would be in the overall story that we're telling here over time. And this is why we need that time. We can't tell that story in one 60-second ad spot. We want to tell that story across different moments and different unlocks and have it be a much bigger win for the brand and for us, because the audience will go, well, this is a real organic-ish integration. It's actually them using it and talking about it and telling the story. So that I wanted to set that up before Matt went into, okay, we have the email, we have my YouTube channel, we have the podcast and those kinds of things. But I hope that sets the tone with kind of the style we're going for on this side.
It is that partnership collaboration to say, yes, what are the goals, but also what objections are you currently facing? Like what are you hearing from other brands that you're working with? And your own marketing and acquisition efforts, like where do you know that there's adoption friction, or where do you theorize that there might be adoption friction? What is the price point, right? Like who is your ideal customer persona? Here is ours. How well do those line up? How are they different? What is your differentiation in your market? You're a SaaS tool that is helping to organize and hopefully make workflow perhaps a little bit easier when it comes to affiliate marketing programs. How are you different from, X competitor, Y competitor? What's the story there, right? So getting into that before we even think about, what is the bespoke version of a program that we could put together, from a sponsorship direction standpoint, like we need to be able to sit in that. And if they're willing to come to the table and be candid and vulnerable to a reasonable degree, right? Like, and kind of share that stuff, and we can share our stuff. Here's what we know to be true around our ideal customer persona, how much they usually spend. If you're selling, for example, like if this tool, if this affiliate marketing piece of software is $300 a month, right? And it has a ton of really sophisticated BI, capability, that excites me, right? But that might not be a really strong fit because that price point, the capability might be just too advanced for at least our kind of average audience member. But it might be a real fit for our pro members, right? Because they are longer in their journey, right? They're more elevated in their own business development. So what if we think about a different story and a different angle that maybe starts with our pros first? Could we find an avenue into that slice of our market where we can get adoption there, get some stories, get some testimonials from our pros that then we can layer into a phase 2 version of this programming, where then it's our pros talking about your product to other people that want to become pros.
Man, you guys are speaking my language. So you mentioned you've been doing this new strategy for a little bit less than a year. Have you seen good traction with it? Any challenges with this? I mean, the one thing about this, and I'm sure you guys are aware of this, is like this requires more operational complexity, right? Because especially if you're going to be, vetting stuff ahead of time. I'm wondering, like, walk me through, like, what is your decision filter, your criteria here to decide, whether to invest, to spend the time to take on a partnership like this, given that the admin, or the operational complexity is increased?
Yeah, it's a function of 2 or 3 things, right? That we've kind of hit on here, but it's kind of in synthesis. One is like, are we willing to make a bet together for something of a longer term? And that's all a relative thing. So not just 2 flights, across a 2 to 3 week span, sort of as our minimum right now is a 3-month effort, a 1 quarter effort. And it's a commitment from them to be able to do that, but it's also a commitment from us, to your exact point, Justin, because we're putting in more operational, financial, creative firepower, on our side. And there is a calculated cost, of that, on our side. So like, are we willing together to make, at least a 3-month, commitment to this? That's kind of point number 1. Point number 2 is there haggling going on, with price? Right? Like, is there like, oh, can we squeeze here? Can we get a discount? Can we do all this sort of stuff? That's a signal to us that it's maybe not the right sort of partnership, quite frankly. If we see shared value, right, in how we have our pricing mechanics kind of built out, then cool, right? Then I think the relationship is going to be oriented truly like in value as an output versus cost as an input. But if it's only a conversation when we get to economics that's rooted in cost, that to me is a signal that, we're not maybe totally, kind of on par with our values around, in fact, value. And 3, I would say, is like, do we just believe in the brand? Do we use that product, or do we see ourselves using that product? Can we see our members, right, in our team potentially even using that product? But if we don't, then even if the other 2 denominators kind of like they lock in, it's like, what, maybe we'll consider, but like in full honesty, like if we can't really see ourselves using it, we may just not in the best service of you, the potential brand partner, may not be the ultimate best choice. Can we refer you to someone else that we know in our vast network that might be a little bit better?
To what degree are you running this playbook on inbound inquiries versus outbound stuff?
Ultimately, both. But right now, it's a little more inbound because that's just sort of like, if I zoom out and look at history, like we have been in the fortunate position where we get a lot of inbound. But as a whole other thing, and this kind of to flip back just into your kind of timeline question, how long have we been doing this? This is relatively new. I was building out this whole new vision and then structuring all of the deal structures and the economic, kind of formulas and everything else around this a lot last year, especially in H2 of last year. And we have then been putting it into place with some pilot programming here in Q1. So I'd say it's still relatively in like the R&D phase. Like we have some wins that are impressive. We just can't quite yet talk about them. But really, like in terms of mainstreaming this is kind of it hits, after we get through the R&D process a little bit further, in Q2 and beyond. So it's a really cool time to even be talking about this, where we are. But what I will say as a part of that kind of build out business process is then more deliberate outbound capability, right? That is more in-house or pseudo in-house, more deliberate methodologies with like how are we really targeting in, sort and fit right with brands that we either know or just through our own sort of research are determining could be potentially good fits.
Two things. Number one, just the position it gives us in the space, the sort of vibe it gives off is like, oh, it's like, you need us as much as we need you kind of thing, right? It's like we're being pretty exclusive with this. So these partnerships are more valuable and perhaps more long lasting. And because we want partnerships instead of just $1 for a flight, for example, it's going to be something that would, yes, require some upfront work to go and find and build these relationships and nail them. But then when they're being run, we don't have to scramble for next month's sponsor, right? Which a lot of people do. So this is where we're focusing more on depth. We're focusing more on quality, and why we're going a little bit further here. And I know it's a different style, and it's maybe like, a little bit more premium, but we want to become premium. We want to play the premium game and charge premium prices. And so it feels good because I had once back in the day had been scrambling every week and just kind of taking everybody, saying yes to everything, and it didn't feel good. The audience knew it was just for money versus like a real relationship, and we want to get away from that.
One thing I think to keep in mind as you build out, as the R&D becomes actual full production in terms of your strategy, what I have found throughout my career doing hundreds of deals is that inbound is very tempting, but ultimately oftentimes is not worth your time for a business as established as yours, for the following reasons. Oftentimes when brands and companies, these larger brands, come inbound, what they want to do is a lot more fully baked, right? They've got this very specific campaign. They've got these objectives, these key messages. They have a tactic in mind oftentimes. They have a budget set already. By the time that they've reached out to you, they've been prepping this campaign internally at their company or at the agency, for 6 months or something like that. And so if you're to come in and try to run this playbook, this bespoke playbook on them and be like, well, how about this, this, and this, and this? I found that oftentimes they're a lot more rigid at that phase of the outreach. And so I see a lot of creators spinning their wheels trying to convert these inbound opportunities into these much larger comprehensive partnerships for that very reason, and waste a lot of time because the brand, they don't just say no, they're just like, well, maybe. It's like it's just like all these versions of maybe, but it's ultimately no at the end of the day. And so for a company like yours, I would spend a lot more time on outbound than inbound. Yeah, there may be some that like make perfect sense and you're able to, kind of shoot fish in a barrel, so to speak. Even I can say for my own business of where, even though I'm only a couple years old for this particular Creator Wizard business, I don't really rely on inbound anymore, even though we get a lot of it, because the types of deals, the deal sizes, I guess is the point, is that when you're able to have kind of a more of a blank canvas, that's when the deals go from low 6 figures to mid 6 figures, for example, because they don't have a budget really. It's like, let's co-create this. Let's build this together. And so just wanted to like impart that to you.
Actually, I can validate that back to you, which is there was one brand deal opportunity inbound in Q4 that I wasted way too much time on. And it speaks to just, I don't know, even a meta theme. We don't have to go here next per se, which is just like, how do you fundamentally transform, an aspect of your business, either like as a primary revenue stream or your entire business model, right? Like over time, and do right as best you can by certain key relationships, right? In terms of staff that are trying to help execute on that stuff, changing workflows and operations, and not piss people off or, run afoul or something, or make a mistake, especially when it comes to sponsorships and you double book a spot or something. So like the transformation side of this is not small in terms of sometimes its complexity, or at least for us, because we have had, again, a wider footprint and more demand, for a while. But ultimately, yes, like our efforts are beginning to shift much more towards outbound. A tool that is actually really starting to help us with that effort is hunter.io. I'm guessing Justin, you know those guys, and there's a couple other players out there. But it's increasingly like a really kind of key part of our little outbound tech stack, that we're getting more aggressive with.
Tell me, how are you approaching some of these longtime partners and sponsors and like having this conversation with them? Or are you, or like, I don't know, it just requires a lot of like, bravery, I think, to like go back and have those conversations, knowing that you're probably going to be saying no or turning down or ending certain relationships. How have you approached that?
I very much appreciate and agree with your word choice on bravery, because there is a fear component. some of these either the brand partners or even some intermediary, kind of third-party broker partners, we love, right? Like the people are fantastic, but it's like, hey, like this, we genuinely believe in our core, as human beings, as entrepreneurs, our value sets, that this is a better product. It's a better experience, right? This new approach to sponsorships is much more meaningful to the entire ecosystem, right? That interacts with it, right? From the audience, from the brand partner, from us, from like literally everyone. So like, we'd love an opportunity to at least have space to share why and share the vision for this and how this can be better. But if it means that it's going to be not in alignment with your business model, or how, again, to your example also, with a lot of the corporate types that have, they've measured every inch of their campaigns before they come to us, right? If that means it's a square peg round hole, like, yeah, that means maybe we can't continue to work together, sort of a thing. And it's hard. I have personally navigated several of those conversations within the last 6 months. They don't all end in, bad outcomes. It's just sometimes they end in divergent pathways, right? So it's tricky, but at the same time, a couple are like, yes, that, right? They get excited, they see the innovation, right? And they want to be different. So I'd say that to anyone listening that has the same fear that I have had. And again, I'm just saying personally, in terms of going back to partners and saying like, hey, we're gonna shift, right? It's gonna be big. We'd love to, again, have that space to tell you the story and why, and we'd love for you to be a part of that transformation, a part of that journey. It's very okay if it doesn't. You're gonna have the spectrum of outcomes. You're gonna have the sad outcomes, but you're gonna have you're on the moon at the end of that conversation, right? Because it goes so well.
One thing I'd love to talk about, I don't get to talk about it too often because I am always kind of down the sponsorship angle, but surprisingly, like one of the biggest levers that you have as a creator or a business to be able to walk away from certain deals that aren't great with sponsors is having a diversified business. So I imagine that a lot of the changes that you guys made to your core offering with the membership stuff and all that stuff also, I imagine, contributed to your ability to, now that you have a little bit more of consistent revenue, I'd imagine, be able to reevaluate some of these other relationships.
100% true. In 2017, we started promoting online courses. This was our first set of products. Before that, it was all affiliate marketing, which was cool because then I didn't have to worry about managing the products. I just send people another way and get a commission. So the online courses were great, and we had generated over $5 or $6 million in one-off online course sales. However, starting in 2020, we started to realize that, especially with the pandemic, that people were wanting to connect with each other. It was less about the information. We're all bloated with information. In fact, it is the people behind that information and the guidance that come along with it that can serve a person better. So we've changed our business model completely to be about the community and people first. We call it community-powered courses, and we have an SPI Pro community that's a little bit higher level with more strategic planning and higher level talks. But in general, I mean, first of all, we did take a hit initially because instead of a single course for hundreds of dollars, we're selling a monthly membership for less. But over time, we've seen that to generate more revenue because we can now show how continual membership provides continual results. And what, Matt, we've had like a 2 to 2.5x completion rate over courses when doing it with other people versus on their own. So it's like a win all around. And the best thing, MRR, we have monthly recurring revenue, predictable revenue, where it doesn't feel like now that we have to nail this launch or else. Now we just keep going and providing a great experience. People are sharing from within and bringing new people in. And yes, we still do launches and promotions and campaigns, but it's working incredibly well. And that stability in that, and thankfully we have a really low churn rate as well, allows us to be more selective with the partners that we work with. And it makes it even feel more premium. Some other benefits of having the community is we have a direct connection to those who we serve now. We are literally seeing their conversations happen in real time. We can not just be there to support them, but we can have a very close ear to what's going on and what they're doing or what they're listening or what they're getting involved with. So much so that, there have been times where they might start talking about a product that they discovered. And we go, whoa, that's interesting. Like, that is helpful. Let's reach out to that company and start building a relationship with them. And now we can say, hey, some of our community members are using your product. Can we get on a conversation? Can we have a chat? And some of those chats could lead to, what we just talked about today. Matt and I are also doing a lot of company advisory. We both advise a number of companies. So we've gone beyond the sort of partnership level and have actually, now on the board of some of these companies. Like, it's incredible what can happen when you focus on who it is you're serving and what are they doing, what do they need, and what solutions are out there, but the people around that, right? Not just like the transactional stuff, but the people around there, the relationships. This is why also another thing Matt and I are very big on is best way to grow your online business is to get offline, to meet in person. It's something that Matt is incredible at, is flying out to see somebody and having a dinner and just like getting to know them. And I do the same thing on this coast over here. I know it's not passive at all, not at all, but it's incredible. It's fulfilling, and it just feels like we're doing business for the right reasons when we do it in this way.
And if I can boomerang off of that, I think, Justin, it does kind of bend back to that last question, which is like when we can be generating consistent and growing direct revenue from our primary customer base, right? From our primary, core of the business model, which yes, is now memberships, right? And we have a 7-figure ARR, and it continues to climb. And that covers essentially like what we need to remain like a very healthy operational company. Almost everything else is bonus, right? And that just basically goes straight to the bottom line profit. Right. It also gives us the advantage that you were kind of teeing up a little bit ago, which is like we can be that much more selective with the brand sponsors that we say yes to, on what terms, and within now our very differentiated, and new model. And that only should continue to perpetuate a virtuous cycle of like, if we are bringing in the right brand partners, yes, there are sponsorship dollars there, that is revenue, but also as a whole other layer, part of our green space, with some of these conversations, even as sort of like beyond the initial boundaries of our new sponsorship program, are non-sponsorship collaboration opportunity, where then we're actually able to drive customer acquisition into our membership from the exact same partner.
Well, one thing I think it's fascinating, and I hope everyone watching / listening can appreciate, is the power of being comfortable with both direct and indirect monetization. One thing I think is like really clear, because I started this business speaking directly, I would say, to kind of like influencers, right? Like YouTubers, TikTokers, Instagrammers, this type of thing. It wasn't until a ways into the business where people started coming inbound being like, oh, I'm a podcaster, I'm a course creator, community operator, coach. I think sponsorships are cool too. Can you help me? And so it was the YouTubers, the TikTokers, the people who are used to doing brand deals. They loved it because they never had to have an actual sales conversation with their audience. They could get AdSense, sponsorships. They didn't really have to ask anyone like, hey, pay me money, right? And so the power of what you guys are describing, and I think a lot of other businesses, that if you can be comfortable with having both, actually offering and serving your community directly, as well as through partnerships and affiliates and alliances and things like that, there's just so many like it's a virtuous cycle all along. I'm wondering if maybe you guys could each share for any creator or business out there thinking about making a similar transition to going from these kind of one-off transaction type relationships to more of a holistic approach. Like what's one key piece of advice to get that bravery to reach down inside and actually maybe forego some of these lower ticket things in favor of these longer term partnerships?
Like as I advise and coach and try to really support our members and even some corporations, and thinking about transformational business strategy, right? Like honest to God, like strategic planning. It's never going to be one dimensional or linear, right? So if you're thinking about making a big change in, say, your approach to sponsorships, as we're talking about, what secondary or tertiary thing are you doing in the business that can support that, can provide a safety net, can kind of de-risk some of the bets that you're making. So if you're trying to plan for that, scheme that out. Can you have a test, sort of campaign like we've been doing with now, 3 or 4 brands right now in our new model. We're getting feedback. I look at that as a product, right? So I'm getting product feedback from our initial, brand partners going through our new program, and I'm improving upon that, right? I haven't totally switched, totally gone the market. I haven't totally cut off inbound. We're not there yet. We will, right? So you have to plan that out over a time horizon and put it, honest to goodness goals in place, right? That you want to hit along the way. So as a tertiary or secondary or tertiary revenue stream, what else is going on in your business? Justin, I think we're very much of the same mind in terms of like differentiated and diverse business models. Are you a one-trick pony and you're only selling off of like one course and that's all you're doing? That's not maybe a bad place to start, but if you can grow and diversify, then you're de-risking, the very nature of what it means to grow and operate, a healthy and thriving company, especially as the landscape of our internet markets continue to innovate and grow.
Yeah, for me, it's, we talk about being brave, but it's so much easier to be brave when the deal just makes sense. So if you have perhaps worked with a company in a more traditional manner for a sponsorship on one of your platforms or something, and it worked really well. Well, why don't we work together to make this even bigger? Lean into what is already working. It's so much easier to work with somebody who you've already helped. And so start there. Start with a company that you already have access to, who you already have built a relationship with, and go, hey, why don't we try something like this in the next quarter? Because I think we could go even deeper here and form a real partnership between us. And I want this to be more than just, a transaction. I feel like that's what you might say to like a girl if you're trying to really get like date with her too. It's kind of similar, right? You want to take it to that next level, and those are the kinds of things you'd say, minus the money part. But yeah, I start with wins you've already had and build on top of that instead of just trying to maybe come up with something brand new. I mean, that's kind of what we did.
If people would be interested in more dating advice from you, Pat, or to learn more about SPI, where should they go?
Not me. No, I'm just kidding. However, if you want to be around incredible entrepreneurs and build a network professionally, SPI would be a great place for that. We have a couple communities, SPI Pro, if you're an established business owner, and our All Access Pass, which has a library of all of our amazing courses and workshops, as well as a community there too at smartpassiveincome.com. And yeah, thank you for having us on. This has been absolutely incredible, and hopefully a conversation that is enlightening and maybe different for your listeners and viewers.
Totally. Thanks again, guys. Appreciate it.